Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, agents. I am Mally Carl, and I am back. And by I am back, I mean, what the F happened while I was gone? What happened with 1.6.1? You guys, ETF Charlie had one job to do. All you had to do was go over to Sweden and fix the game. And that didn't happen. No, I'm totally joking. I know, and you know that they dropped 1.6.1 before you guys actually got there. That way you guys had no input on 1.6.1 when it dropped. But since there was no State of the Game during this time when ETF Charlie was over there, I'm making my own. Instead of the State of the Game, because we all know what the State of the Game is, we are calling this State of the Blame, because it's really hard to know who is to blame for the current state of the division. Not really. But we're going to go ahead and explain it anyways. Now, for those of you who follow me regularly and thought that I had given up on the division or that 1.6.1 had killed me off in a horrific car accident, it hasn't. I'm here. I'm back. And I was actually on tour with my job. And when I say I was on tour, I mean, they had me going to a lot of different places. And I got to see Orlando, where the company that invited me down there closed part of Disney World to let us drink and have lots of food and fun for a while. I went to Myrtle Beach, where I sat in my hotel room most of the time playing Zelda Breath of the Wild because it was so dang cold outside and there wasn't really anything to do between the massive amounts of liquor consumption caused by reading about the issues in 1.6.1. And I finally wrapped it up with New Orleans, where I had probably the best time, and I would highly recommend everybody hit up New Orleans at least once in their life, especially when you hit 21. And I spent last month eating some of the best food in the world. It was so good, drinking some of the best bourbon, smoking some of the best cigars, and generally getting paid to do it, which is a super huge bonus on top of all of that. Now, the downside is that I haven't made any division videos in a while, so when I got home, I was excited to try out 1.6.1 despite what I was hearing. Well, after spending a few minutes of the game, I realized that I could sum up the Division 1.6.1 patch in a single picture, which I'm going to put up now. And I'm going to talk about that. Actually, several pictures, because apparently no one cares enough about the roadkill that is the division right now to actually move it before they just paint over it, and that's what happened here. The division, which seemed fine starting across the road at 1.6 on its way to 1.7, really got halfway across and stopped along, scratched its chin to ponder what quality of life really means. Sadly, this was short-lived, after it was too focused on ETF Charlie to see this huge QA truck hauling bugs barreling down the road. Luckily, the division QA came by to just repaint the road and just repaint over it without actually scraping up any of the roadkill, and they brought us the dividing line between 1.6 and 1.7, and they just painted over the anything without really thinking twice. So everything is fine, nothing to see here. Let's just keep going. Now, all of this is, really just a long anecdote to help me segue into what I'm going to talk about next, which, how could this possibly happen? What happened? Where did 1.6 go wrong? Because it was looking so good on the PC PTS when I was complaining about it on Twitter that there was 0 people in there. I know, you're sitting there listening to this and saying, how could all 0 to 10 people who were on the PTS at any one time, how could they have possibly let this happen to 1.6? Because the feedback that we got from Massive during the State of the Game, Hamish and Yannick, they said the feedback was great, that everything was good, and they really said, well guys, this is some fine work, let's go ahead and slap a pass sticker on this and hit the build button. We promised May, and by golly, we're gonna give it a May release. And probably not like that, but it was probably close, because during the State of the Game, what else was there to say? You heard Hamish talk about how the feedback that they were getting from the PTS players was great, and that it was awesome, and that everything was good, and that they could move ahead with making the build. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that, because what Hamish basically did was blow smoke up your ass. Yes, Hamish, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, but you are full of shit. Like that, talking about that, like and I'm going to talk about this really coming in here, because you are the face of the division during the State of the Game. And so this falls squarely on your shoulders about blowing smoke up the player base's ass. So I saw this problem when I logged into the PTS and thought that part of the issue was that no one was playing online. Like there was maybe 4 to 6 people when so I couldn't test, I could test loadouts, but I couldn't test them in the last stand because nobody was playing. Now I do play off hours from the people at Massive, so maybe just maybe all the people at Massive was playing during the times when I was asleep. But with such a huge focus on this patch and the quality of life for 1.6.1 and fixing, you would think it would be all hands on deck with not just Massive, but Ubisoft in general, because the lifeblood of this game really depends on everybody being on board, not just Massive. But, everybody needed to be there. After all purpose of, test server is to test. That is the purpose of the test server. It's to test. But if there aren't enough people to test, you can't possibly have a proper test. Now, I have no idea how many QA people, because like I said, my buddy at Ubisoft, he left, he quit and went to EA to work on some other stuff. And so logging in and seeing that there was maybe 2 people in the actual server, like hanging out in the hub, there's nothing that you can do, and I did get on Matt. Shotcha. Matt, I apologize for getting on you, but when I see you playing the Division and you're spending time in the regular game when the test server is empty, and sure, yes, you can chastise me for getting on Matt about this, but honestly, either, depending whether or not it is your free time or not, it's the PTS is empty, and I damn well better see 1 to 2 Ubisoft gamer tags in there playing the game at any point, at any one time, testing the game and helping make sure that the test server there's at least some people in there, doing guided things that are helping us test the game or anything like that. The problem here was that at any one time there was less than 10 people in the PTS. After seeing those numbers, I knew bad things were coming down, and if you watched any of my previous videos where I was doing that, you knew that I was saying, and I knew, and I said it, not having a public test server for the console during this time was going to be a huge mistake. Why? Because 10 people cannot test a game. 4 people can't test a game. And the average amount of people that were playing the game at any one time was 4 people. Well, here's part of the issue. Out of those 10 people, maybe 4 of them are people that aren't trying to get views on YouTube channels or streaming or doing something like that. The problem here is that after that, let me step back. So after logging in on day 1 and seeing 10 people and knowing that streaming wasn't an option for a lot of people, that eliminated a lot of the motivation for people to get on and actually, be in the test server. So you had to be pretty much a diehard player, knowing that you needed to log in and that you weren't going to see a lot of players. So the other 4 players logging in have virtually nothing to do because no one was on to provide warm bodies for testing. This means that the last stand wasn't tested, DZ wasn't tested, and pretty much the only thing that was tested was PvE. So all the problems with the Seeker Mines, with Deadeye, with all that stuff, it wasn't tested. 0 testing done. 0 in PvP. So there was no PvP testing in 1.6.1 unless Massive was doing it on the back server. So quality of life for PvP, which is what should have happened, was actually a quality of life for PvE, which wasn't really needed. And it was tested, sure, maybe by a handful of people, but I have no idea whether or not PvE was actually tested with this stuff, because out of the 4 players that were there, they weren't in the PTS, they weren't in Last Stand, they weren't in Survival, they weren't in the Underground, so they had to be testing something. And if they were testing loadouts, fantastic. Loadouts ended up being great. So, the Division players right now are in fact on the real PTS. That is what I'm telling you right now. So let's go ahead and spin this, because this is the positive part that you can take away. So while we weren't able to get the majority of the, or we were able to get the majority of the major bugs that were tested, and the issues right now with the status effects, glitches, and everything else that could go wrong wasn't tested, basically what you need to know is that you, the player, the console player, the PC player, the PS4 player, the Xbox One player, the Division player, right now, you are in fact the real PTS player, the 1.6.1 PTS in-game, testing what will be 1.7. That is you right this second, and that is your responsibility. That's the silver lining in all this. Don't think of this as the live game. Think of it as a preview to 1.7, and you'll feel a lot better about the changes, because right now you can make the difference. You have the input. You can go and take all that 1.6.1 crap that is in there and go and report it to the Ubisoft. Now, what can we do to help? Well, reporting bugs is going to be the best thing that we can do. Since we are testing the game right now in the production environment on console PTS right now, let's just call it console PTS, because that's what you're doing. You gotta head over to the Ubisoft forum and report bugs. Yes, I know I'm giving you a practical take on this, and I could be sarcastic about this and cynical about this, but if you enjoy playing The Division and you want to see it succeed, this is what we need to do, because what I'm saying right now is 100% true. We need to be using this as a testing period, and while it may suck because it's broken at this time, giving the feedback to them now is going to help make 1.7 in the long run a much better version of The Division. So if you don't have one, head over to the Ubisoft forum, log in, sign up, and instead of hitting up YouTubers to find glitches that you can use to exploit the game, like the never-ending shotgun fire glitch, the beastly predator mark bleed out glitch, or my favorite, the glitch that allows you to become fully invisible again, go and post these to the Ubisoft forum and let's get them fixed. I am sure that 1.7 will be released in July because summer is going to be a time when players come back to The Division because they don't have school, and they will come back at some point or they won't. Either way, you are here now. You are here now, and you are the tester for The Division on the biggest PTS console for 1.7. Don't wait until they release a console 1.7 PTS, because what you are doing right now is testing it in the live production environment, and I know that you guys are going to be livid in the comments that that's what I'm telling you, but this is the reality of what we have turned the game into right now, and it is the 1.6.1 PTS, and we need to think of it that way, because that is the only way that 1.7 is going to change and be better for it. So that's my time in this video, and yeah, I know I didn't actually talk about blaming anyone for this video for the massive cluster F that 1.6.1 is, but it's not really needed. I don't need to assign blame because you already know. What's needed is your support. Yes, we can complain about The Division. We can go online, we can go to Reddit, we can do all that stuff, and we can complain. But your feedback is what is needed right now. Your support is what is needed. Because if you want to play a better version of The Division, we need to not just play the game, but report the bugs so that when 1.7 comes around, we have things ironed out and they can truly be of importance, and they can see the importance of not just saying that they got good feedback from the 5 people that were playing on the PTS, which is BS, because the feedback wasn't based on the majority of the fixes that were made. It was based on the 5 people who were testing loadouts for basically the whole time. It was based on loadout testing, and that is, you know, what it is. And loadouts were testing. Loadouts are probably the only thing right now that is fine. And if this game was called Loadout, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So the point that I'm trying to make here, 1.6.1 is a massive failure. Remember, no blame being put out here, but you know what I mean when I say massive failure. And so go out there, pretend, stop running the meta, stop running the meta. Try out tons of builds, try out tons of different things, and report those to the Ubisoft forum, because that is the way that 1.7 is going to be great. Stop looking up glitches on YouTube that you can use to be some sort of, you know, gaming god, because when they fix that stuff, you're gonna go back to being a shitty player like you were before. I mean, you might not be a shitty player, that's just me projecting, but if you use a glitch and it makes you really good, and then it goes back, you're gonna go back to whatever you were before. So there is no quick fix for this. 1.6.1 is what we have. We are a console test server right now. Go out there, test the game, report, and do all that. So for all of us here at the Division State of the Game, I am Mounty Curl, and we'll see you somewhere down the road in 1.7. Make sure you look both ways before crossing the road, because nobody's cleaning up after you. They're just gonna paint right over you. Anyways, agent out.